Jim Cowan. How are you, Jim?
Hi, Sonia. I'm very well. How are you keeping?
Really good, Jim. Jim, we have talked many times over the last, I don't know how many years, 7 years or whatever, maybe even longer. You've been on a number of my shows. I'm now introducing you today to my Wake Up audience. Great to have you with us. I did promise you I would keep revisiting your story because I believe that it is an egregious example of kind of like corporate charity takeover of somebody's legacy. And so I think one of the best places to start is I want to show a clip of when I filmed you outside Cancer Research UK, because if you're not familiar with the story, people, the man on our screen right now is the original creator of the very famous, a very lucrative Race for Life. Only Cancer Research UK have systematically refused to acknowledge that. And here is Jim outside Cancer Research UK being filmed by me, telling us what inspired him. Let's have a look at this, Jim.
He thinks their own father is a great man, but I learned a lot of life lessons from my dad. I honestly believe he was a great man. He was the sort of person that taught me not to have heroes, but not to hold them in such high esteem that you forget that, for example, a footballer who's good at his trade is no different to a bricklayer who's good at his trade. So he taught me to have a very level-headed way in which I treat all people from all walks of life and all classes within society. That in itself should be a legacy, but I don't know how you shout about that. But I know that when he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, I just felt there had to be a landmark for him, something that said John Cowan was here. So obviously there's quite a jump from my father having diagnosed with cancer to creating an event that was initially for women only. But that jump happened when I started researching what was around there in terms of fundraising events.
So there you go. I'm sorry about the interference, noise from the road and everything else, but I think it gives everybody a flavor of it. And that is, you were inspired to create Race for Life as a legacy to your dear departed father, John. And that's exactly what you did. And for those who aren't familiar, Jim, I'm going to get you to take us back to the very first time that you did it. The official story for Race for Life is it started in 1994. Over 10 million people have taken part, and it has raised nearly 970 million for life-changing cancer research. Jim, when did you form Race for Life? Tell us the start of the story.
The original idea happened in 1993. As in the video, my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer, prostate cancer. And as I said in the video, I just wanted to form some sort of landmark for him. I've been involved in organising other events, and so looked around. I was also involved in athletics, coming to the end of a career as an athlete, moving into coaching, and I'd organised one or two road running events. And so that was my starting point. And when I looked around, I realised that actually in road running at that time, there were very, very few female participants. And when I looked deeper, there were fewer than 15% of fields were made up of females, very different from how it is today. So my feeling was that we needed something that would be for females only, despite the fact it was prostate cancer that had taken my father. I then looked around at the distances. The shortest road distance at the time was 5 miles. Generally, 5,000 metres was viewed as a track event. And then when I started speaking to women, why aren't you taking part? Distance was one of the issues. A phrase that I heard was, it just feels so testosterone charged. It was all very male dominated. It wasn't considered fun. So I thought, okay, let's throw all these lots into a melting pot. Let's create a fun event that's an achievable distance where you're allowed to smile, but is women only. So it's welcoming to women. So that's why the first Race for Life, in fact, for the first 20 odd years, was women only. This I pulled together as an idea. I initially took it to a breast cancer charity who told me it wouldn't work. So I then sort of sat back and thought, oh, do I need to review this? Sat in the clubhouse at my old club, Thames Valley Harriers, one night, chatting to a friend, running the idea by her, trying to think how we could, make it into something that would work. And she said, well, I'm temping from next week at the Imperial Cancer Research Fund in London. Let me have a chat with them and see if there's somebody you can talk to. She came back to me, put me in touch with somebody called Jill Baker, better known these days under the name Jill McRae, their married name. I wrote to Jill Baker outlining my idea, got a very positive response, was invited in to have a discussion about it, had a discussion. It was agreed that I would then developed the idea and launched the Race for Life in 1994, which I did at Battersea Park. And that was the very first one. It went well, it raised money, and it should have taken off from there. The initial plan was to have 1 in year 1, 6 in year 2, 12 in year 3, and eventually grow it so there'd be at least 1 in every county and every city, and grow beyond that depending on demand.
How did it get to be taken over by Cancer Research UK, which is probably, is it not the world's biggest charity? When I made Business of Cancer, it was certainly close to it. It's an absolute massive charity. So how did that happen?
It's the world's biggest cancer charity, not the world's biggest charity.
Yes, sorry, my mistake. Yes.
Yeah. In the winter of 94, 95, I got a phone call off Jill McRae, as she then was, basically saying, thank you for your idea, bye-bye. I looked around, tried to figure out what the hell I could do. I was advised that it was impossible to steal an idea, therefore I had nothing at all that I could do. So I went away and thought, well, don't get angry, don't get bitter, focus on other events and, do them better. And the big lesson was that what you do, Jim, in future is you trademark your events. You don't trust the person you're working with, even if they are a charity. Which sad state of affairs, but that's the world we live in.
It is the world we live in. This is never about getting attention for you. This was about creating a legacy for your father who died of cancer, for a cancer charity to steal, I'm going to use the word, to steal your idea and not credit you is so egregious. It's outrageous. So what have you done? You and I have both endeavored to get Cancer Research UK to fess up to what happened. Tell me where we're up to at the moment. Any progress?
Very little. It's a little like banging your head against a wall. And a lot of people have said to me, why don't you just give up? This is never going to go anywhere.
It's not about that. It's principle.
Principles are important. This is my father's legacy. And I'd far rather be a mosquito in the room than to have that room go silent. So that's my view. I carry on. We run a campaign, Race for Truth, with a presence on social media and a website with regularly updated stories, highlighting things such as the hypocrisy of the leadership of Cancer Research UK, successive chairs, Leszek Borysiewicz, Lord Simon Stevens, the current one, successive chief executives, Harpal Kumar, the current one, Michelle Mitchell, all very, very happy to take recognition for their own achievements. Lord Simon Stevens, for example, Sir Harpal Kumar, Michelle Mitchell, OBE. But when it comes to recognising what others have done, they suddenly go silent.
Yes. And I suspect that this is a legal financial issue because obviously Race for Life is their massive cash cow over at Cancer Research UK. And when I made Business of Cancer, if I remember correctly, the salary for the CEO of Cancer Research UK was one of the highest in the charity sector. And so obviously lots of money going into the charity, huge amount going into administration and staff costs. And I suspect they are deeply concerned that acknowledging you are the creator is going to create problems for them. What do you want from it, Jim? You're not looking to sue them or to bankrupt or do anything like that, are you?
No. But interestingly on that, actually, and a term that's much used these days is two-tier justice.
Right.
Interestingly on that one, and a real example of two-tier justice is that were I a millionaire, I would be able to afford to sue them. But the two-tier justice system in this country is that the ordinary man and woman can't afford to sue people when they're wronged. You just have to swallow it and move on. Not my way, so I'm going to carry on shouting.
And you
have. There's a hypocrisy involved. Again, talking about the legal side of it as well, is that, I'm quite happy publicly, and I'll do it right now, to call them out as the liars, the hypocrites, the fraud supporters that they are, and I'll explain the fraud in a minute. Any sort of large organisation that has the resources, has a large legal department the size of which would make many corporates blush, would be at least sending me a cease and desist letter. But for some reason, I've heard nothing telling me to stop calling them liars, hypocrites, supporters of fraud, etc., etc. Could it possibly be that I'm telling the truth and they know they haven't got a leg to stand on?
Well, I've even approached them directly. I've approached Michelle. I've approached the corporate. I've approached them all, and it was all kind of, oh no, that's really, we can't really comment on that, and all this stuff. They dance around it. They don't want to address it completely, and nobody at Cancer Research UK has ever denied your story to me. They've never denied it. They've never said he's lying. We have a problem with this. La, la, la. He's creating this problem. But the whole point about the Race for Life, and I did one once in memory of my stepfather and in memory of my father, both who died with cancer. And so I did one once before I woke up to all the madness, right? But I did one once, and the thing about it is, it's a really kind of a real kind of good-hearted event. People get together for all the right reasons, often to remember their loved ones, to raise money for Cancer Research UK. And this again was before I realized what they were actually doing with their money. But so the whole thing is based on goodwill, and yet they've shown you and your father precisely none whatsoever. So that hypocrisy is astounding, Jim.
Yeah. I mean, I talk about lies for years. There was a whole range of different versions came out of where the Race for Life came from. And I always say, the truth doesn't have any. Why does the truth need to vary? My stories never varied, but their story varied year on year on year. And then the more pressure I put upon them, suddenly they changed their whole line, and it became, we don't credit anyone.
I mean, it's extraordinary. I know we don't credit anyone, but you should credit the creator. Yes, you should. And the reason that they're not is, again, as I say, financial and legal, I suspect. But also it means that they would also have to backtrack on the way that they've treated you over the last few years, because this is now, a quarter of a century old, this story, right? Already.
Over 30 years. Over 30 years. 1993, I came up with the idea. 1994, it was launched. So over 30 years now. It goes on, and it will keep going on, because I'm not going to quit.
No, you refuse to quit, which is absolutely wonderful. So, I mean, where can you go from here other than continuing your social media campaign?
Well, I mean, other than yourself, Sonia, the media have been alarmingly quiet on this. But then again, if you look at the history of all sorts of scandals that have emerged from Hillsborough right through to the modern day with the post office, the media are always very quiet. They shut up until they're forced to report. So, I'll keep fighting, and eventually something will move, something will dislodge that will force the media to report. And that will then start the process of bringing Cancer Research UK to account.
Well, it's interesting. Do you remember that intervention from Jeremy Vine? So we put out the video, didn't we? And Jeremy Vine tweeted the video, didn't he? He said this, I'm having to paraphrase him, but essentially, if this story is true, this is extraordinary. And yes, it is extraordinary, and it is true. And yet he did sod all with it, even though he recognized as a newsman that was a news story. And yet he did nothing with it, even after tweeting about it. Jim, how did you feel about that?
Well, I was pleased for the initial response from him, but after that, time's taught me not to get disheartened and disappointed. Otherwise, you just get down. You've just got to you pick up, you take another step forward, you keep fighting. Jeremy Vine is one of the people I've contacted several times without response. I've got a list of over 1,000 journalists I've contacted over and over and over again. Do your jobs.
That's right. Absolutely. Do your sodding jobs. Absolutely. Jim, obviously this conversation is in memory of your father, even if our biggest cancer charity is refusing to do it. Before you leave us today, what do you want everybody to know? I've already put the links in the description to your website so people can follow what you're doing. What do you want people to know?
Just the truth. The Race for Life was created by me. It was in memory of my father, his legacy, if you like. And what I want people to know is that the people that are misrepresenting their role in the creation of it, the people who currently organise it, are lying to you. They are liars. That they support the fraud of that woman, Jill McRae, who went on to actually claim she'd created it herself. And their silence supports that fraud as well. That's the sort of organisation you're supporting when you support Cancer Research UK, a company that is a company, not a charity, that is happy to lie to you, is happy to cover up fraud, is run by hypocrites, and has no moral compass, no integrity whatsoever. Don't trust with
absolutely, and who stole its biggest fundraising idea from the legacy of a man who died of cancer. Terrible, terrible thing to be thought of to do with a cancer charity. Jim, I know you're not going to give up. I expect to speak to you again in a couple of years' time.
I look forward to it.
You take good care of yourself. I did promise you, Jim, I won't forget, because I think it's egregious what they've done to you. Everybody, this is Jim Cowan. And actually, Jim, just quickly before you go, because I want people to fully understand this, right? And that is, you didn't, when you came up with the idea, because we haven't covered this and we just briefly should, when you came up with the idea, you didn't come up with it just in a void. You came up with it because you had experience of these things. You've been doing stuff like this for a long time, haven't you, Jim?
Yeah. I'd organised several events prior to that. I've organised lots and lots of different events since then, across a range of charity events, in running events, in challenge events, gigs with various bands. It's been something I've done right through my life, is doing things that support good causes. But this should be the landmark event. This should be the one that says, as I said in the video, John Cowan was here.
And he was indeed. You take good care of yourself, Jim.
Thank
See you
Sonia.
soon. Take care. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Always welcome. Take care, Jim. Take care.
It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton.